Hello and welcome to today's JavaScript tutorial. Today we are going to make this nice, very simple random generator, quote generator, which fetches an API, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So if I click on this button, new quote, I get a new quote with the author, and this continues like so. Alright, so this is what we are going to make, very simple. And we are going to make to get these quotes from this endpoint, this address, api.quotable.io/random. And what it gives us in return is in terms of JSON, and we can get the content, which is basically the quote, and also the author, which is, well, the author. So I'm going to use CodePen as my text editor, and let's start with the HTML. So we are going to need a div. Let's just give it a class of board, and inside that div let's make another div, call it text. So dot text, and press tab, it gives you a class text. Inside the text let's have a p tag for the quote with a class of quote, and let's just have something like this is example quote. We will replace this, of course, with a real quote. And then an h6 with class author. So author, and let's just call the author is going to be Vahid, which is me. And then let's have also a button at the bottom. Button, give it a class of btn, and let's just say new quote, and that's it. So this is going to be our HTML, and let's go straight to JavaScript. So in order to work with these, we are going to replace this with quote, replace this with author, and this is going to happen when I click on this. So these three elements, we should target them here in our JavaScript. What are these elements? This is a class quote, right? Class quote. This one is class author, and the button is class btn. So let's grab them and save them inside variables. So I'm going to have one variable like quote, and we're going to get that from our document query selector. So we're going to select which element, dot quote, because it's a class, we need to specify dot here. Now we have access to this element here. Now let's copy and paste it 2 more times, and this one, instead of quote, let's just have author. And what is our author? We're going to select dot author, which is this part here, and the last one is going to be the button. So let's just call it the constant because it's not going to change. So btn, and what is the class? Dot btn. So now we have access to these 3 elements here. Cool. Now what else are we going to do? We are going to fetch this URL, right, and turn it into JSON, and then get these items from it. So for that we are going to do something like we are going to click on this, and then this should happen. So let's just add some event listener to our button. And what's that? It's just like assigning someone to on a door, that they should listen whenever someone knocks on the door. They should open the door. That's why we say btn.add event listener. So we are going to add an event listener to the btn, and what's that? For a click. They should listen for a click. Whenever there is a click, they should get quote. But this function has not been defined yet, so we need to define it up here. We just say const get quote, and it's going to be, of course, a function which is going to do what? It's going to fetch that URL that you just saw. Oops, not this one, but this one. So it's going to fetch this URL. And what happens then? We say, well, then do something else. Turn the response you get into a JSON file. So we say res or R or Q, whatever you want to name it, res. Turn that into res.json. Why? But what is res anyways? So res is this one here, is this response. So when you send this request, you get the response, you get this from this URL, and the response includes a lot of stuff, metadata, data stream, it's a lot of things. The status code, for example, 200 means it was successful. If it is 404, means the page does not exist. But we are not interested in all this. We want actually the JSON. We want to get to the JSON part of it. But what then? We say, well, then again, now we have access to, well, not this, to this. Let's just call it Q. So let's just say Q and an arrow here. And what is it going to be? Remember, when you have access to that Q, if you want to access the content, you say Q.content would be this, and Q.author would be this. So we are going to replace the content of our quote, which is this, with this, right? So let's say quote.text content. So this is a method you use to get the content of quote, which is this, and this is the content of the quote. We are going to replace it with what? With q.content. You just saw that here. This is Q and this is content. We do the same thing with the author. So we say author.text content, which is already Vahid, is going to be, well, content is going to replace with q.author. That's it. Done. So there is something wrong apparently here. And what is that? Maybe I have some event listener. It's not a function. Oh yeah, well, no, add event. Oh yeah, listener. I misspelling here, so capital L, uppercase L. Okay, now it should work. So if I click on new quote, it will listen for this click, As soon as it clicks, you say, oh, let's go to this function. What am I going to do with it? Go and fetch this URL, get the JSON part, and inside that JSON file that you got, replace this content with the q.content, and replace the author with this one. Now, look at what happens. You see? Bruce Lee, as you think, so shall you become. Awesome. So we have this. That's it. But another issue is, whenever someone loads the window for the first time, what they see is basically this one. We can either copy and paste this quote and put it here, or we can just leave it empty and use our window here. So we can say window, that is add event listener. So we are going to add an event listener to the window to listen whenever the window loads. So that is load, get quote. So whenever the window loads, get a quote. And see, this happens. And now when you click on it, next quote, next quote. Cool. So the last part is actually the CSS part. And I've already done the CSS part here. So let me just uncomment it. And wow, what a change. So I've just grabbed the body and changed the font size and also the background color. And I've used this, well, I don't have it. Yeah, and then the board margin 3 rem auto so that it goes to the center. The background color width 20 rem and min height 20 rem. So I wanted to have a fixed kind of height, because if the quotes get shorter, then it will change all the time. But I want to have a fixed height. Display flex, direction column, all of them are in a column like this. Justify content space between so that the button goes to the very bottom. And then the border radius 20 pixel because of this round corner. And then text 1 rem padding so that it's not close to the border. And then there's also for the BTN, color is gray, border is none, and background color, font size 1.5 rem, padding 10 pixel, and cursor pointer. You can see it like that. Okay, that's basically it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe, leave a like or a comment if you have any questions, and thank you for watching and listening.